Hello, good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, whatever time you are watching this video. I want to thank you for joining us on Knowledge or Nonsense. My name is Sharon Combs, and this session we are speaking with someone who I wanted to know more about the journey and the story. Over the course of life, we have places that we feel like we want to get to, wherever that there is. But I really like to talk to people who have experienced different things on their journey, challenges, successes. Did they know what it was going to look like day one, or did they just kind of grow into certain positions? So we really want to ask some questions and get to know some of the people in our industry, some of the people in our communities. And so in today's Getting to Know You series, we're going to speak with a lady. Her name is Jennifer. She's amazing. She's amazing. And feel free to, I'm going to ask her some questions about data too, but not too much because I know she's speaking on some, that she speaks on that when she goes into different places. And so I don't want to give away all of the goodies. So you guys know what to do right now. Please share the video, like, subscribe, get your drink ready, your coffee, your tea, your water, because water is good for us. And when we come back, we will be joined by Jennifer, and we're just going to ask her some questions to get to know a little more about her. Everyone in this series has been amazing up until this point. I know it's going to continue. I've been able to speak with this lady, and if I am inspired or moved to an activity just in a regular conversation with someone, I know that somewhere there is some commonalities that are what I call tribe like. It's something in there that's going to help me grow just synergy wise. And so I really want to share that with you this evening. So, okay, give us about 20 seconds. We'll be right back and see you in a minute. Hello, Jennifer. How are you?
Hello, how are you? I'm doing well.
Oh, good, good. Uh, Guys, this is Jennifer Greisen. Jennifer is in the healthcare industry. I'll let her tell you where and how, however much she wants to share with you on that. But Jennifer, I just want to say thank you first off for sharing your evening with me. I
Of
also want to
course.
say I like to say this, and people are like, which is why I really like it. But when I was speaking with you, you said things about data. You said things about knowing what it's like to, you know, have your own work in a place for quite a while, like seeing the growth, the changes, the transitions. And so sometimes this is my opinion. I've had conversations with people who are in healthcare industry. And a lot of times they feel like those conversations, I hear things that say, well, no one is doing this, or I don't know who are, or they feel like what they're going through, they're the only ones that have ever had to navigate that. And I'm like, no, so many people before us have navigated things, whether for their own decisions or someone else's decisions. And so I really like to talk to people who have some longevity in the game that can help. So that's enough of me talking today. Jennifer, will you let us know a little bit about you?
Sure. I've been in healthcare for 31 years. Last month, I hit the 31-year mark. I can't say that I was in this the entire span. I took a little bit of time off for children and for other activities, but that was only a few years here and there. So I've seen a lot, if you can only imagine, coming from the early 90s until today, as to how healthcare has developed and changed, and it's changed me. So if I were to describe myself, I am a daughter, sister, aunt, mother, friend. I'm very passionate about leadership and about guiding others. I like to be a solutions provider and a caregiver. I think that kind of wraps me all up into just a few highlights of what I like to do and what I'm about.
Wow. So you like to be a solution provider and a caregiver.
Yep.
That sounds like two different ends of the spectrum. So,
Well,
and
I
you
think
never,
just
go
go
ahead.
ahead. I think by nature, I'm a nurturer, if you will. And so I like to nurture and give, but I also like to see development, and I'm passionate about guiding and leading. And I think a little bit that's how females or women are different, a little different, in that by nature we are nurturers and we like to just see something grow, be it a plant or an animal or a being or a project. And we throw everything we can into that project. But then I also like to guide and lead. And I think I've been doing this long enough that I can kind of pivot um, regarding what the situation is, or the project is, and where the need arises. So I have no problem mopping the floor or leading a meeting in a boardroom. I can wear all the hats, and I think I'm not opposed to it. And I grew up in this industry from a lower level to a higher level, and I really just tried to do that by perseverance and again nurturing each project.
As you grew up through the ranks, through the time, do you feel that growing up in this industry helps your level of confidence and being comfortable in your role, being comfortable with your skill set, what you know?
I would say yes. I'm also a very good listener. And so just being a fly on the wall, or having my eyes and ears open in everything that goes on, I think, and I've got a pretty long memory. So I can, even to this day, remember being in an OR in Los Angeles and probably around 94 or 95, helping surgeons create new customized drapes based on the surgical procedure, and them explaining to me what was needed for that particular procedure. And then I can fast forward to a few years later where I was really at that time getting into instrumentation and learning about take apart laparoscopic instrumentation, having to teach surgeons that as well. And so all of those experiences, and then fast forward to leading sales teams or operations teams, I'm able to take all pieces of that puzzle and kind of put it together into an overall perspective that I think does help me. I think all of us learn from past experiences, and that only
Yeah.
helps make you better. Learning from your mistakes, but also learning from what worked and further developing that as you grow in life.
Okay. Did you always know? And I love that. I do think I look at things that I do sometime, and it's something that I learned. Not being funny, I learned it waiting tables.
Yeah.
Like there are things I learned serving tables that are they apply so much in the role that I do now. And I didn't think that then, but now I'm like, that was a skill set that was being developed.
Hmm.
Even there, like customer service,
Yep.
listening to what people need. Now, were you always going to work in healthcare?
No, I mean, as a young girl, I always loved math and science. And as a young girl, I wanted to be a cross between Jane Goodall or somebody out there saving the environment and working in a zoo or helping animals or something like that. My dad was a missionary and he was in India and Africa. And at one point, I told him, bring me home a baby elephant. I think I was 5 or 6 years old. And I honestly thought he would come back from Africa with a baby elephant.
Uh,
But instead, I got this little wooden carved elephant that I still have to this day. So early on in my life, I
Oh,
knew I just wanted to help. And I think, that nurturing vibe, if you will, was in me from an early stage. Later in life, I was very good at math and science. I was, my friends tell me all the time I was taking, I mean, back in the 80s and in high school, there wasn't such a thing as advanced placement, but I was quizzing out of math and science. And probably if I would have had someone guiding me, I would have gone towards engineering. I didn't even think about it at the time. So I ended up getting a science degree. And I honestly thought I wanted to go into pharmacy, be a pharmacist or into pharmaceutical operations, like in a lab. So when I graduated college, I did that for a little bit. I worked in a class 1000 clean room, and I thought it was boring. I think what I was missing was the social interaction and being around people versus titrating vials and chemicals and working with, that type of materials, but I miss the person to person interaction.
Oh,
And so I
wow.
did
That's
that for a little while, and then ended up getting into customer service with a medical device company.
okay. So you were still able to be in around these things, but not. Yeah, that when you say 1,000, you said something about 1,000 clean room. A thousand.
Yeah,
What is that?
the class 1000 clean rooms. So clean rooms are classified by the air exchanges and just how clean they are and the particulates in the air. And so I actually titrating vials for inoculations, really for an allergy company that was trying to prevent allergies. So I would
Mhm.
titrate these vials into tubes that would then be used for injections for allergy relief. Um,
Wow.
and you had to be in a moon suit head to toe. Basically, you had to have air flushed off you as you're entering into the moon suit and you're entering into the
Wow.
class 1000 clean room. And then if you can only imagine everybody working in these moon suits, you can't really talk to people. I mean, you kind of can, but it's just not the same, and you're just focused on your titrations for that day. Or whatever, if you had to use a centrifuge or whatever lab equipment that might be there.
Yeah, I don't see there being a lot of interaction there at all.
And
At
not to
all.
say that there aren't skilled, lovable and likable and interactionable people in those roles, but it just was not for me. I didn't last very long at all, and I needed to move at the time. My fiance at the time was moving to another state, and when I went to the next state, it was just kind of time for me to find a different role that I thought would be better suited towards me.
Awesome. All right. So I do like to ask, as people transition from one to the other, were you afraid to take that step, or were you like, this isn't going to cut it for the next 30, 40, 50 years?
No, I can be kind of adventurous, and I have been known to do things on a whim. I have moved places without even not like visiting them, and I moved internationally somewhere without visiting the place. I have, I kind of get a vibe from someone and I'll just invite someone for dinner or, out for a movie or something more socially interactive without knowing them. So I am pretty adventurous. To me, every new situation is an opportunity. So I don't approach things with fear. It's more about the positive spin and what I'm going to get out of it and what I'm going to gain. So I think me leaving that role where I wasn't very happy, and I made the best of it. Now, I was only there for maybe a year or 18 months into something new. My eyes were wide open and I was very hungry for something new.
All right. So right now, what you're doing, and that's amazing, by the way. I wanna say so much, but I want to hear too so much. So right now, as you're working and doing different things, like what do you like best about what you get to do now?
I appreciate that question because I'm very passionate about helping others. I said that I was a caregiver, a solutions provider, a nurturer. I like to segue that skill set into healthcare. And because I've been living this life of a cross between medical devices, both on operations and sales, so I've led both teams, I've been through FDA audits, and then I've led sales teams and had to develop comp plans and growth projections for our top line revenue. That everything I like to do is from solutions mindset. So I really like to kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together. I like to offer, my knowledge and just my experience and what I can do to just help others. Because I figure almost any situation that someone comes across, someone else has already been through that, and it's about
Yeah.
maybe not doing it the same way but offering support and offering solutions so that whatever obstacle you might be facing, maybe you can shorten it or make it not quite so cumbersome, just based on listening to others that have experienced similar projects or similar activities. So I really like to offer solutions more than anything.
I love that, and it sounds like that you guard that heart to help as well.
Yep.
So so kudos to you for still, because I know you still have that, like even right there how you just was like, yeah, and you smile, like that's authentic, you
Mhm.
know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? and you still have that because everyone who has worked in the field or been around the workplace for, some time, they don't all have that inner joy and, hey, let's be solution oriented.
Yeah.
Everyone doesn't have that. So I like that that is part of what you get like to do best. Um, well, let me stay with these questions. What do you like second best? So you like the solutions, you like to bring you to the table because,
Right.
again, for me, if it's something I haven't dealt with, I I tend I can be an overthinker. Thank God I'm aware, so that keeps me, like, when I'm like, "Oh, you still thinking about this?" Pull out and do something else. But for me, just the fact that someone is like, "Hey, I've had a similar experience," or "Have you considered this?" That someone is willing to offer that information. I love that. I would do the same. How do you how do you keep that?
So I think what I like second best kind of segues. I love networking. I love listening to situations and seeing how I could help, but also offering my support along the way. So not only if I don't have the answer, call on me if you get stuck and let's network. Let's find someone that can help you. So that's kind of all kind of the same as my first answer. But I would also say, secondly, I get to travel quite a bit. I've been lucky enough to travel quite a bit internationally. I've lived in Southeast Asia. I love going new places and experiencing new things. And maybe that's kind of why I approach everything with eyes wide open, because I see it as an opportunity and not with trepidation. But I really get to know others, their culture, their experiences, new cities, new restaurants. I love all of that. So to me, it's just opportunity. And maybe, I guess, secondary to that, I love to travel. And so it all kind of, the fact that I get to do that for work, I think is a big positive in my mind.
It is. It is. See, healthcare. So what I like to do right now, I am going to let us take a moment and look, maybe check out a commercial. And when I come back, I would like to ask you about conferences as far as continuing education, things you do to stay sharp professionally, and if you would share too, when we come back from the commercial, things you do to stay sharp. Do you go to conferences? Are there things that speakers have said that stuck with you? What are some things you do to make sure that you do stay sharp, that you stay engaged, cutting edge, part of the trends? So we'll be back in about 60 seconds.
Sounds good.
All right, and we're back. My name is Sharon Combs. You're watching Knowledge and Nonsense. Our special guest is Jennifer Greisen. Jennifer is a healthcare voice. She probably is a subject matter expert. She won't say that, but I will. She knows about data. She's reading different things. And her journey has been across different disciplines within the healthcare field. And so, Jennifer, you've learned in different places. You mentioned that about, being in you said the full on moon suit. You worked with instrumentation with physicians. Over their time, I'm pretty sure you've attended a conference or two. You've traveled with your profession, with your job overseas, different places in the world. During those conferences, like, how do you stay like cutting edge? Okay, I'm just going to talk in my own language for just a second. So how do you stay up on it? How do you stay apprised of what's really going on, of what trend is worth our time, what trend is not worth our time, what's a shiny new object, but it may lack substance? Like, how do you make sure that your sword stays sharp professionally?
Well, I will tell you, Sharon, in this day and age, we have so many tools at our disposal to really stay up to speed. You know, if I look back to when you had to actually travel, I mean, I was around before cell phones and we were using pagers and you had to stop and call folks. It's a totally different era today in the world of podcasts, in the world of, on demand information. I love going to conferences, don't get me wrong, but they can be exhausting. And, by about day 2 or 3, you're kind of on information overload. So
Yes.
I do two things. Number one, I go into conferences really looking for something specific, or subject matter expert, as you reference, someone I want to connect with or network with, because they've done something or they've been participated in a study or they've written some article or I just know they've got the experience. And so I want to hear from them firsthand about some question I may have or some piece of their technique that I didn't 100% understand. So that's number one. But then number two, I will listen to podcasts on demand, read articles, listen to others, because I think it's not just about the one-dimensional communication, but it's bi-directional. And so if I hear others speaking of something, I'm like, oh, that's really got to be something. If you're hearing a lot of people referencing it, then there might be something to that substance. So hopefully that answered your question. Kind of multifaceted.
It did. It did. Has there ever been anything that stuck out to you at a conference
Yeah.
that you were like, I'm so glad. I'm so glad I went.
Yeah. Early on, I didn't have to do as much in the HR realm or in leadership. I mean, I was a leader, but I didn't manage massive amounts of people. And there's been a time, I think at my height, I probably had close to 400 people reporting to me within different operations and different manufacturing facilities. So I actually, about probably 7 or 8 years ago, got to go to a conference, and it was just by happenstance. This was an industrial conference, and there was one topic on employee retention. And it was a room filled with hundreds of individuals that all were general managers or production line folks, and they all shared information on techniques they had to retain employees. And I absolutely loved it. It was, a platform that you'll have with people up on stage that they really were able to engage the audience and get that audience participation. And once one person opened up, the hands were just raising, sharing ideas. And that is absolutely organic. Like, you could not have planned that, but it was just interesting to hear the things that people used as different techniques. And from that, I think it really helped me develop as a leader and a manager. I haven't been a leader or manager throughout my career, and I'm actually not now, because I'm more of in a consulting role. But it doesn't matter if you're leading people by paper or on paper, or just leading people in general through your actions. I think it all kind of correlates. So that's one particular conference that I was able to go to. And again, just the information sharing, the power of that, of networking, is just so huge to me.
All right. Good, good, good. I learn more about networking all of the time, and I would have loved to have been in that room.
Yeah.
I've gone to conferences that have absolutely nothing to do with healthcare, and I come away with things that transfer that I can use as well. So I'm always a fan of conferences, but I like to ask people, because most people who we've seen with longevity in any area, or we see them scaling professionally, conferences are a part of that.
Yeah.
And so I just I ask those questions. So what keeps you also free? This is just a fun question, because I heard you just say at the height you had 400 people reporting to you.
Yep.
And I know people with 4 and their ulcers. So how do you stay, if, I'm asking that question, but how do you really maintain
my stress-free life?
Yes, exactly.
I
Yes,
Yeah, I
yes.
can't say that I don't have stress, but I will say, you learn to live and let go. And some of it is just maturity. My younger self, there were so many things I could probably say to that individual that just got caught up in the small stuff and sweated the small stuff. And I really, at the end of the day, I try to, lay my head on my pillow every night thinking, is this the best I could have done today? And people, I will tell you, through my life, people have come up to me and say, oh, Jennifer, 10 years ago, you said something to me and I responded in this way. I don't even remember because I just let it go. I try not to dwell on the negative. Try not to let anyone else bring me down. I mean, there's enough stressors in life just with the economy and, external factors going on in the world that you just don't know where your future might be. So I try to let anything within my control, just let it go. So, do your best, be honest in everything. There's a lot of my parents were older than when they had me. And I think I'm a little bit of an old soul, but there's just so many things we can learn from our ancestors, just like the golden rule, treating others as you wish to be treated, and putting yourself in other people's shoes, and recognizing that everybody comes from a different background. And not just that, but just coming in that day, you don't know what trials and tribulations people went in and through just to get to where they are to see you that day. So if they're a little grumpy or a little cross, I just let it go. Now, if it's a repetition, I'm also going to hold people accountable. I can be strong, but onesie, twosie type of things, I'm not going to let that stress me. And life is too short.
Oh man, well thank you for that. That's a freebie. Because I literally I navigate that, I'm at a place too. I'm just like, eh. But at the same time, sometimes depending on what role you're filling, you say you do a lot of consultative, like you're
Yeah.
more of a consulting. Depending on what role I'm in my various activities, sometimes it's you. You have to be the one to have the conversation. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? You can't just relay the information. You have to have it. But that's really good because I do see, I want all of us to have the quality of life that we want for the time period that we're here. And
Yeah.
so I do like to say, how do you stay also free? How do you release things? How do you let things go? Because I think those are things that people need in any career, but especially in healthcare, because healthcare is demanding.
Oh,
It
for
is
sure.
high pressure and it is demanding. And most of healthcare is about solutions.
Mhm.
So if someone is asking you something, they're wanting a solution to something. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Of
Um,
course.
is there anything as we've been asking questions, and is there anything that you may want to share or expound on a little more before I go to our next question?
Well, I didn't know if you were going to get to the data piece, and I'm happy to dive into that now if you would like.
Yes, let's dive
We are,
into it because,
of course, we are in a whole new age today that you have got data that's been captured for years. And it's not so much about capturing the data, but it's having the tools that can mine data, and through AI and various other tech devices out there, actually giving you usable data that is relevant and necessary for your daily life. I mean, you just think about the devices that are in our world, and I won't mention names, but from the various phones and watches and smart devices that you just use throughout your day, that are helping to keep on track and helping to capture data, mine data, and spit out information for you, from knowing what the weather is to knowing what your health is. There's all kinds of different techniques, but where I come from currently in my current role is really using data to help drive decisions. And I'm pretty passionate about a couple of things currently, and that is helping with design of new construction or remodeling, but also using data to help with things like analytics and productivity, and knowing how many people to staff. And some of that just comes from being in an operation and running a company for a period of time, where I'm looking at data all the time and looking at numbers to make sure that we are meeting objectives and that we are on budget, and what's our head count, and how many people do we need versus what we have, and if we've got extra people, can we cross train? So I think instead of having to do that all manually, there's just so many opportunities out there to have that mined and extrapolated for you, to where you can run reports and then make informed decisions based on that data.
Would this be a time? I just came back last week from a room full of like VPs of surgical services, things
Mm-hmm.
like that, and lots of people are building, are wanting to be able to maximize the spaces that they have, because sometimes you build and then you realize you didn't have enough real estate or you need something else. So is this where that data would come? Would that data come in helpful for them? Is this something that would help them
Absolutely.
make a more
Yep.
informed decision?
Absolutely. So there is some software on the market today where you can actually, I mean, you think of what typically happens today. Hospitals are bursting at the seams. They know they
Yes.
need to grow. So what do? They add on some more ORs, because ORs typically are where the revenue stream comes, for most hospitals. It could be G-Lab or other procedure rooms, but they just add on. But what they don't always look into and take into account is everything that goes into that growth and the types of growth you're projecting. So ophthalmology versus urology versus spine versus thoracic versus vascular, all different specialties that are completely different in the instrumentation that's needed, the equipment that's needed to clean them, the types of skill set needed to even do the procedures. And so you've really got to take all that into account. And when you mine data and pull data based on what I talked about earlier, past experience, so you pull the history. What did it cost us to do this procedure for the last 2 years? What did we spend trying to do that procedure? What revenue was brought in? Looking at all of that to really make informed decisions. But it's only been in the last few years that a lot of that information can be now at people's fingertips. Whereas before, they were doing a lot of, I think we do this, I feel like we do this, I think if we do that, it'll be the right thing, but really using data to kind of back up your decisions.
Wow. Just even the questions that people were coming in asking us, it did have to do with a lot of things where the data, and I would ask them, what are some of your systems? Because you can pull some of this information, but even what you just said about the different specialties, I didn't think about, maybe
Yep.
I'm not a guy, I didn't think about the urology, like the different specialties there. I'm always about just the robotics, because that seems to be what everybody wants. The robotics, ortho, things that have, heavy, lots of trays, lots of
Yep.
space, taking up lots of space. But yeah, you're right. So man, I wish you would have been standing next to me so that you could have given them those answers. And so is it okay if someone reaches out to you like via
Of course.
LinkedIn and
Yep.
asks
Of
you these
course.
questions? Okay, guys, so you hear it right there. Definitely for some of the friends of the show, your directors, your CNOs, that you're building and adding things on, or you're courting new physicians. This is the information that you want beforehand.
Yeah.
You do want it beforehand. I've seen it over the past decade where individuals go and they're happy to build something, that zeal is there. It's going to be amazing. You're so excited. But on the other side, as far as taking care of the things that you've brought in, or having the right, I've even seen where people didn't have the right type of ceiling. And so
Yep.
now now you have to spend millions more because some information you didn't have on the front end. And what you're saying is this data is now almost readily available.
It's readily available. I mean, it's not completely automated where you just punch a button and it gives you a design. There's the human element of making informed decisions, but it is surprising to me in healthcare today how much money is spent and mistakes are made. And you highlighted there a little bit, Sharon. I see it all the time. And the length of time, just because of what COVID brought us and the supply chain issues and construction issues, the length of time it takes right now to do construction, be it new build or reconstruction, is astonishing. And I see it all too often that by the time they start, finish, go live with their construction, they're already facing issues because they didn't take growth into effect. They looked at where they were 3 years ago and didn't kind of map out what the growth curve and trajectory is going to look like. They didn't add in for complexities. They didn't rough in for what ifs. So there's a lot to all of that. And it's not going to be perfect, but at least if you've got some of that planning pre-built into your workflow, and you're thinking about the what ifs, and you're trying to have roundtable discussions about anything that possibly could impact, the flow or the spend or the procedures, and you're accounting for everybody. I do think sterile processing a lot of times is left out of these conversations, that it's typically, people higher up and some construction people and developers that are just making decisions. So having a multidisciplinary approach and bringing in all folks to have that conversation, I think will lead in the long term to less spend and less mistakes, as you mentioned, and looking at all the criteria that's needed so that you are, spending your dollars wisely.
Yeah, I do analogy. So I always think about the algorithm, like in social media algorithm, and when I first started doing like leadership trainings, and I was like, this is an amazing leadership training because leadership is my background. That's what I went to school for and all of that, university. And I was like, this is amazing. And it wouldn't be well received. And I was like, but it's amazing. And, one of my coaches, one of my speaking coaches was like, you have to let the data tell you what's amazing.
Yeah.
That data is going to let you know. And it would often be something that I was like, that's horrible. I didn't even speak well there. Or it was out of order. And the data would be like, no, people responded to that. And
Yeah.
so I'm learning. I'm big on data now for operational decisions. I'm big on it there
Yeah.
because if not, you're just going to lose money.
Yeah.
You're going to hemorrhage money. You are going to hemorrhage money. But I just love how you just like, no, I understand it. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, that's because you were over there in that clean room. That's because you came from the clean room. That's
Yeah.
unique to your skill set. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I've seen all facets, I've seen all sizes, and I can't say that I have all the answers, but at least I'm going to challenge the entire, disciplinary team to think about everything that we possibly can think about. I mean, the unknowns are, what does the future hold? What does the economy hold? What's going to happen in our environment? What's going to happen in our world? But at least everything you can put into that whole process and put all those pieces of the puzzle together, but then also have contingency plan. What if that happens? What if this happens? What if we grow here? So you can be nimble enough to be able to move and not finish your construction and then have to start all over with a reconstruction. And I think that's how our highway system in the US is just purposely built. Like, there's some cities you go to, there's always construction. And it's because, and I sometimes wonder, why didn't they just, instead of building one lane, do 3 lanes? Is that on purpose? I'm not sure. I'm not a master designer, a master planner, nor an engineer. But I think in our space, there's things we can do to just kind of account for mistakes or account for, some negative things that can come about, so that you are, really informed and you're taking a holistic approach to the design and the development of whatever you're working on.
All right, since we're talking about data, and this is really good, is there a way, like, I had a question that said, what qualifies for your no and for your yes?
Yeah.
I would like to switch that question here on the spot. What qualifies to be credible data versus like projected or not projected, but maybe data?
I think
Does
it's
that
got to
make
be
sense?
based on history. I think that's a good question. And we all know in healthcare, it's also what part of the country you're in. And that really goes to where the surgeons, were trained, the techniques they have. And, and I've been able to cover from the Midwest to the West Coast to the East Coast, and it's all a little different. But I think having enough data that it's not just a one-off or a two-off, but it's what the majority is telling us based on that region, based on that, part of the country, based on that type of procedure, based on that spend, because again, you've got cost of living that are differences across the country. So I think that you have to have a lot of good, clean data, and knowing it's clean to begin with, and knowing that it's, enough market share or enough data to make informed decisions. So 1 or 2, nuances are going to kind of be thrown out. You're going to go with what the majority tells us.
Amazing. Amazing. I love it. It sounds like it's been very helpful for you too. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh, it would. And it would make you a lot more confident in your projections because you know it's just not, this is what I think. This
yep,
is solid, almost
yep,
like the evidence based
yep,
versus well, what we think should happen. No, evidence based.
exactly.
Wow, that is amazing. I am being challenged. I thought I knew about data and I use it all the time, but I think I've just gotten challenged to come up a little higher. Jennifer, this is why you're selected.
Oh,
This
thank
is
you.
why we are getting to know you a little bit more. So, okay, for someone who says it's too hard or they just don't even want to look at the data, they're overwhelmed. Are they in the wrong role if they're in a leadership or a purchasing position? Or is there a tool, or do they just need to call Jennifer, really? But like,
Well, data is a very broad term, and saying that something is too hard is also broad. And so again, I go back to my management of, different levels of employees. And I think number one, you've got to unpack why they're saying that. Are they not understanding the data, or is the data too hard to understand? So I said earlier on, we have a lot of data. It's a matter of knowing what to do with it, but it's also a matter of being able to understand it. And there is enough technology out there in the market today that can give you the reports you need so you're not having to manipulate so much data. Because the minute that human interaction comes into data, mistakes can be made. So if it's more machine data that's mined or using AI techniques to extrapolate the data, I think that helps. But there could always be that chance that someone is in the wrong role. If someone doesn't want to look at the data or doesn't appreciate the data, I'm going to be suspect of the role they're in. And it's not for me to say. But if they think it's too hard, and then I look at what they're doing, and that's why I say unpack it to see exactly what they're looking at. Maybe they just didn't understand what's right in front of them. And I love to share information. I love to teach. So maybe it's just a matter that they didn't understand what that column was, or what it was calculating. And once you explain that to them, then they're more informed and able to do the job a little easier. But I wouldn't throw out that there are some folks that just still want to do things the old school way, and that it's just so slow and arduous when you've got techniques that will, bring the data, and then you can make informed decisions based on that data, instead of sitting there pen to paper. Still, I mean, how many people to this day, and I'm not dissing anyone that does it, but writes a check when they go to the grocery store versus using some automated payment? So you're still going to have old school people that like to do things, because that's what they trust. And you hear that all the time. I don't trust the apps. I don't trust the smartphones. I don't trust this. But technology helps us advance and propel into the future. So we've got to embrace. I believe we need to embrace the technology and put it to the best use that we can possibly have. That's my opinion. But again, there's people that do it the old way. I just think if you want to stay up with the times and as fast, I mean, I look back to the 90s and how I did business and how much time was just taking up sitting on the phone talking through things. Think before emails, and we had to talk through everything. You had to have documents mailed to you, and then we
we
had
did.
fax, versus today where you're texting, talking, emailing, and on podcasts. You can do it all at the same time. So the information is a lot. It can be an information overload. So I think that's why having tools at your disposal that can mine anything or can extrapolate anything, including data, just makes your life that much easier.
I believe it does. I Most of the time with the it's too hard, when I said it in the past and when I've heard it even even recently in things I get to do, it's not a couple of questions. I like the fact that you said you ask a different question. Like you went a little deeper. You're going to clarify. We're going to be more specific because generalities will keep you right there. But when we do go a little bit further, it to me it became fear based, but not fear based. It was fear based based on ignorance,
Mm-hmm.
not capability,
Right.
not capability. It had nothing to do with their intellect, but they were not familiar with whatever it is they were working with. And because they were not familiar, they weren't confident and it just came across. But the more they became familiar and they did it more and more, it was that it's too hard left. It was like, oh, Oh, okay. Oh, and you could just see them like, oh, I can do this. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I used to say it all the time. As a matter of fact, one of my mentors called me on it. They would ask questions, and I'd just be like, I don't know, I don't know. Just because, just being a lazy thinker. Like, no, seriously, like in my 20s, just 21. Just, I don't know. I didn't even try to know. I just,
Yeah.
whatever I was doing, I didn't want to stop. And so somebody actually said to me, like dead in my face, just looked at me. He's like, stop being a lazy thinker. You just say that.
Yeah.
You just say that. And
It's the
you
easy way
sometimes
out, right? The
yeah.
easy way out. Yeah.
But it in the end it becomes hard though. And that's what the
Mhm.
person who told me, he's like, stop being a lazy thinker. Because you think you're taking the easy way out, but this is gonna lock you up years down the road. So get used to, you know, think about
Well,
it and then
and the other
respond.
thing I was saying is sometimes it's just the way it was explained, and
Yeah.
someone rushed through it and didn't take the time. I mean, you think about kids are no different than adults in that mind frame. The kid that has trouble reading or trouble doing math, they kind of like shake it off and I'll pick it up later. And then as older, you get older and you think you know, but you didn't really understand it, and then you just kind of panic. But it's sometimes it may just have been the way it was explained. And everybody learns in different ways and in different manners, and so we've got to have a variety of different methods to teach and to get that information out there.
I love that. I'm so excited. I know that I am going to be able to hear you speak this summer. I'll be there with pen, pad, and phone, taking notes and learning. I wanted to ask you, let me just shift for just a bit. I do want to ask this question because it's the month of March. We're celebrating, we're highlighting, we're recognizing different achievements. I always ask, what is like a challenge or an instant? It may not even be a challenge, but an instant where you experienced something and you had to overcome it.
Mhm.
And so what is something that you feel like the audience, like it might benefit the audience to know? It was a challenge, it was an obstacle, um,
I
something
think
you had to go ahead.
it's a great question. I appreciate you putting that out there. I have been fortunate in my life. I can't say that I've had a lot of burdens or a lot that I've had to overcome, other than being a woman, in a leadership role, in where I am a lot of times throughout most of my career, the only woman around. And sometimes my restroom's on like a different floor and I get left. Those are just kind of things that, we all have to deal with, because I don't know that, it's always like, thinking about where's Jennifer? Oh yeah, we do have a female, that type of thing. But I'll tell you one thing, because I can be very headstrong, very determined, and I just kind of plow through life. But I've had some loss in my life, and grief is real. And until you've experienced it, you really don't know how real it is. And allowing your time to go through the whole grieving process. When I lost the first loved one, I've lost about 3 or 4 people there pretty close to me. I just kind of plowed through it and thought, what is this feeling? And maybe it's a little bit of mental health as well. Being the younger generation today is so much more in tune with that than I ever was. I was brought up in the generation that you just work hard, you earn what you can, you live within your means, you don't at all talk about your feelings, and so,
Not
but
at work anyway.
it didn't work very well at all. It didn't work very well at all. So I think when I first was hit with, a loss of a loved one the first time, I didn't understand those feelings. It's like, what is this? What am I feeling? What am I going through? But understanding that there is a mental health aspect to what we all do, and allowing your time. Number one, allowing time to just say, I need time for myself, because that's always, I'm of the generation that I didn't ask for personal days off. I planned my vacation, but I didn't just take me time to reflect. So I think that was a little bit of a shocker to me, going through some loss, going through the grief process. And when you really start reading of what you're going through, it's like, my goodness, this is so real. And so I can't say it's like something exactly happened to me, and even in my career, I've had a couple of losses of careers that were kind of shocking to me. And, it teaches you a lot about yourself, about listening to yourself and taking care of yourself. Because I can't say I've always done that the best. I was head driven, career, but taking time to reflect for your mental health, for your health, your wellness, your well-being, and just, allowing that time. And you asked me earlier that we might talk about saying yes or saying no. I'm a person that says yes to everything. Let me just see how much more I can take on. So not being afraid to say no. And I need some time to myself. I need some time to reflect. I need some time to rest. Because again, I was raised, you have so many hours to rest, then you work the rest of it. Take a nap during the day, I would never think about in my younger self. That to me was like almost failure. Like, why do I need to sleep during the day? But there is so many things for your mental and health well-being that you can take on, that are necessary just to longevity and to your, keeping your sanity, about you.
Yeah. Yeah. That is something that I know people struggle with,
Yeah.
especially in our workspace today. Just the different, we always talked about the different generations a decade ago, but I say often, I really believe we're in the changing of an age, not just of a generation, but of an age with technology, with how fast things are happening, with the workforce that, because I came from that workforce similar to what you're saying. My mother had a strong work ethic. My father, like, burn the house burning down, we're going to work. We're going to go to work. We're going to power through. We talk
Yeah.
about it at home, but like emotions and things like that, if it wasn't, oh, Jennifer, you had me talking. If it wasn't like an immediate family member passing, a wedding, anything almost less than that didn't interrupt work, unless it was like your scheduled vacation time off. But anything less than that is like, and so now we have this workplace feel. Our workplace is becoming more of the melting pot that America says she is. And people are really in there like, no, I just don't have the capacity for it today. And they'll use the PTO. And
Yeah.
I used to be like, what?
Yeah.
You didn't, because when I started working, it was like, you didn't know you weren't going to have the capacity yesterday at 6? Like, almost like you couldn't feel your nose running. No, this is a different thing that I'm
Yeah.
missing today.
Yeah.
And so it has, it's been good. It's been good for me too, but it is something that I have to intentionally do.
Me too.
And I have to intentionally allow others to do,
Yeah.
especially if I'm in a humping mode.
Yeah.
I'm like, go, go, go.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I know, yeah, take PTO, take care of yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself, who will? Like, I know all that here, but when I'm in the humping mode, they're like, I don't have capacity. You didn't know? You
Yeah.
didn't feel that capacity dwindling yesterday? Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're very right about that. And the people entering in the workforce now, that's almost that's up front. That's
Yeah.
up front. It's right there with the compensation packet.
Yep.
What
Yep.
about this as well? And so I do think that, and I think that companies are struggling with that too. Wow, I bet they could pull some data, use some data to
Probably.
help with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I ran it a little bit there. Thank you for allowing me to do it, because I was like, I look for people who have that very strong work ethic. But when I look at what I consider a strong work ethic, mind you, this is my opinion of what a strong work ethic is based on the zip code I was brought up in, my culture, and things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's a great worker. But on this side of life, I also look at the individuals who worked like that their whole life, and the quality of life, or what type of stress, like what that has done to them in a prolonged situation, in a prolonged constant state of pushing things down and powering through. And so
Yeah.
we need it. We need a break. Okay.
We do.
I I don't know if I have any other questions for you. Did you are you a joke? Do you have a joke?
I wrote in my notes about that. I am never the type of person to remember a joke. You know why it is? I always screw up the punchline. I don't know what it is. I've got a very good memory, but I screw up the punchline. But I'm more of a sarcastic person, a
I
dry,
know we
and it's not necessarily digs at other people. I can do it at myself. So I'm just not very good with jokes. I'm sorry. And it's that
Oh, no,
punchline.
that's
I love
okay. That's
listening to
okay.
him. I just can't ever remember him to repeat him exactly right, you know?
Yeah, that's okay. And if you're, no, I'm sarcastic too. So let's not do the sarcasm because
That could get
sarcasm
us into
lands
trouble.
differently. Yeah, it lands differently with different people. I want to thank you so much. Thank you for sharing of your time. Thank you for spending time with us. You said a lot of really good things. Thanks for sharing your journey. Guys who are out there listening, normally I do this 2 or 3 times. I think I got caught up in the conversation. I know I did. But that data, just one of the main takeaways I heard, there are so many tools out there. You know, we can get the data, take the time, learn what you need, or reach out to someone that can help you make a more informed decision. All decision making doesn't come from the gut. And I know we have different levels in our audience. You know, we have director levels, we have some CNOs, we also have frontline employees. Just know that all of this together, even when Jennifer first started her journey, you know, she wasn't overseeing 400 people day one. So your journey is there. Take the information. Jennifer, I heard you say you like to learn. You just take the information from cross disciplines. So
Right.
I just want to thank you so much for coming and sharing time. If there's anything you could shout from the rooftops, one final thing.
Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to say, I don't know that. I prefer people not say it's too hard, but rather say, I need some help. You know, I don't quite understand this, because we all can learn from each other. And somebody has probably already walked in your shoes and you can learn from their experiences.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you so much. This has been amazing, guys. This is Knowledge and Nonsense. Please come and check us out. If you have not registered for Scrub Ball, come and check out Scrub Ball. It's going to be an amazing time. This will be the 4th year of Scrub Ball. And the one thing I can say is everybody leaves with something. Not just a new person that you've met, but you leave with something refreshing, something that's like, wow, I actually had a great time. I'm glad I went there. Like, it is life given to you. Also, if you're going to be at HSPA, by all means, come and say hello. Come and see us. Come and see SIPS, one of our sponsors. Come and see myself. If you have time, come and check us out as we speak. That's enough of that. That's the sales pitch on that. So thank you so much, Jennifer.
Of
And
course.
we will talk with you all soon.
Thank you.
Those in the know SIPS Consults. SIPS Consults is hiring. Confident, competent, and consistent. Starting as a consultant and a volunteer, SIPS has grown into a dynamic group of stellar sterile processing professionals, offering excellent benefits, 401k, and consultant in training program. We are hiring certified technicians, leads, supervisors, interim managers, educators, coordinators. Apply at recruiting@sipsconsults.com or dial 1-866-615-7977.